By the river, Rancher spots his helper exposed in the water, a temporary worker, forced into a life of poverty and silence, was manipulated by a wealthy landowner, Silas Kane. He was a tyrant who controlled people with fear and money, hiding his dark dealings behind a mask of public charity and influence in the community. But a determined young woman, Tamara, found a way to fight back from a place he least expected. With an unexpected partner, she brought his wrongdoings to light. What unfolds is a dramatic series of events leading to a powerful conclusion and the final victory of truth. Is that all you can manage, tiny one? Silas Kane sneered, a gnarled property owner in worn leather boots, as he leaned against a drooping willow by a river. A smirk stretched across his face as he watched a slight figure in the muddy water working at a pace that would exhaust 3 men. The laborer was a woman. Mara Finch, a woman of 20 with a face weathered by the sun, looked up. Water dripped from her short-cut hair. She didn't flinch or show any anger. Instead, she stood up slowly in the water as if his words meant nothing. "Is there no more work for today?" she asked calmly, stepping onto the bank and wringing out her shirt. The muscles in her back were tight under the thin fabric, and she carried herself not like a delicate woman, but like a weary soldier. Silas spat into the grass. "You smell of horses and dirt, yet you act like you're above it all. You're not from around here. What exactly are you looking for on my land?" Mara said nothing. Her life's path was a long journey of a girl who had been deceived, left alone, and cast out. She didn't respond, because his tone contained no genuine inquiry, only a cruel pleasure in degrading her. Just like the day before, just like every morning on the Barty Ranch, women were not hired for this sort of work. But Kane made an exception, not out of charity, but for his own twisted amusement. He thought she would not last 2 weeks. A month had now gone by. "You eat my provisions, live in my quarters, and yet you look at me as if the world owes me something, and not the other way around." Silas moved closer, his stare crawling over her like an insect. "My mother would have said you were born in sin, little Finch, just like all your kind." He meant her mother, a woman of ill repute from a border town, and he knew it would wound her. But Mara just pulled on her shirt without a word. In her silence, there was more defiance than in 100 shouted insults. He spat at her feet. "If you don't learn to follow my commands, you won't last long here. This is the wild frontier, girl, not a fancy dance hall." When the sun set, the heat lessened, and the grain lay rotting in the storage silo. All the hired hands went to the saloon or went home, but not her. Mara stayed in the corral with a young stallion named Shadow, a nervous wild horse no one could tame. In the month she had been there, he was her only companion. They were both wild, both cautious around people, and both accustomed to enduring pain without a sound. She whispered to him, slowly stroking his neck. In that moment, for the first time all day, a hint of a smile touched her lips. That evening, in the bunkhouse, the oppressive heat only grew. The men drank cheap whiskey, gambled with dice, and cursed. A sudden quiet fell when Mara came inside. She wore men's clothes not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Here, a woman's body was a weakness, not a virtue. "Where have you been, you little witch?" someone shouted from a corner. Mara recognized the voice. Troy Harris, Kane's foreman, the man she had once pushed into a watering trough and then jabbed in the leg with a pitchfork. Since then, he had hated her. "I was with Shadow," she replied calmly, taking her portion of stew. Troy stood. "You think he listens to you? He's a beast, you simpleton." He came right up to her. "Or maybe a stallion is more to your liking than a man. Maybe you're one of them." Laughter filled the room. Mara's hand tightened on the spoon. She wanted to hit him, but not yet. "Take a step back," she said quietly. "And if I don't?" Then a third person stepped in, a boy, Ben, young, with red hair and a constant bruise under his eye. He wasn't her friend, but he seemed to understand pain. "Leave her alone, Troy. She's one of us." Silence. Troy didn't reply. He only sneered and walked away, a threat in his eyes. "We'll cross paths again." That night, lying on her hard bed, Mara stared at the ceiling. Her heart was not pounding, it was ticking like a clock before a major event. Steady, precise. She knew what was coming. They wouldn't leave her in peace. Not Cain, nor his lackeys. They disliked her for surviving, for not begging for forgiveness, for not pleading to be one of their women. On this property, only the broken or the strong survived. She was a different case, and a quiet fury was building within her. The next morning began with a shout. "Finch!" She started and rushed out of the bunkhouse. The heat was already fierce. Dust got into her eyes, and in the middle of the corral stood Cain. Next to him, Troy, with a hand on his hip, was smiling like a scavenger near carrion. At the center of the enclosure lay the horse, Shadow. His stomach was rising and falling quickly, as if he were struggling to breathe. "What did you do to him?" Mara ran toward the young horse, but Cain stopped her by grabbing her shoulder. "He got loose from the fence, broke his own leg. We don't have the funds to care for useless animals." "He's not useless." "No." "Then go on, lift him yourself, or put him out of his misery." She knelt. Shadow was shaking, with pain and fear in his eyes. Mara stroked his forehead. He hadn't broken the fence. They had done this to punish her, to destroy her only connection. Cain held out a rifle, its barrel pointing down. "It's your choice, girl. We don't keep the weak here." She took the rifle, stood up, looked Cain in the eye. "I won't kill him." "Then I will." Mara sharply lifted the rifle, broke it over her knee, and threw it in the dirt. "You won't touch him." Silence. For a second, no one moved. Then Silas hit her hard. She fell face first into the dirt. Her lips split. Dust stung her eyes. He leaned over her. "You don't work here anymore. Be gone by sundown. And don't let me see your face here again. Do you understand?" She didn't answer. She simply got up and went back to Shadow. Silas didn't interfere. He knew the pain and the dirt would finish the job for him. Mara dragged the young horse into the shade. Water and a clean cloth, that was all she had. She had no veterinary knowledge, but she had more rage than fear. Ben came closer, holding a bottle. "You really want to stay? He will live," she said quietly. "And you?" She looked at him. For the first time, something frightening appeared in her gaze. A silent vow. "I'm not leaving. Not until they know what it's like to be terrified." That night, she didn't leave. She knew it would cost her dearly, maybe everything. But she stayed. Shadow survived. His leg was swollen, but not broken. The next morning, he stood. In 3 days, he was walking, limping but alive. Cain didn't mention it again. He acted as if she didn't exist. This was worse, because he was waiting for the perfect moment. A week later, a beer arrived. The town's mayor and his 3 assistants. They needed transportation to the next town. Cain offered his wagons and promised to show them the best livestock. And he brought her out. "Here she is," he said to the mayor. "The most stubborn mule on the whole ranch, but she has a way with horses. Maybe because she's a wild thing herself." Laughter. Mara held her ground. She didn't lower her head. But inside, everything was tensing. Show them what you can do. Show them how to break a stallion. He knew that among the horses he had chosen was a dangerous, old veteran, stubborn and aggressive. It had injured riders more than once. She understood this when she saw its eyes. But behind her were the people, the town, the money, a chance to survive or be shamed forever. She stepped into the corral. The horses were agitated. The men held their breath. Cain whispered to someone, "She break down in front of everyone. And if she doesn't, I'll bring her down myself." But she didn't break. She waited, not making a single move, only her breath and her gaze. She looked at the stallion the same way she had looked at Shadow that night. 3 minutes passed. 4. Suddenly, the stallion froze. Then he walked toward her. Slowly, he shook his mane and nudged her palm with his nose. Applause. The mayor was thrilled. The guests were amazed. And Cain stood like a statue. Something in his eyes changed. That evening, he came into her bunkhouse alone. The door was unlocked. He thought she was scared, that she was grateful, that he was her savior now. But he was mistaken. "You know, I've had a change of heart. You'll stay. I was too hard on you." She looked up. You thought I'd get down on my knees, didn't you? He took a step forward. You don't understand, girl. I gave you a chance, and now you can give me what you owe me. He reached out his hand, and then Mara pulled a small, leather-handled knife from her boot. If you touch me, I'll cut your throat, Silas Kane. And you know what? Everyone will think it's your own fault, and they'll be right. He froze. Silence. And he left. But this was not the end. It was the start of a fight. The news spread quickly. Silas Kane had backed down from a girl. It was unbelievable. Unimaginable. He was the man who had the county under his thumb. He punished, destroyed, and humiliated people. No one dared to cross him. But now he was quiet. And that was even more terrifying than his anger. Mara felt it in every look the ranch hands gave her. In every dinner that was brought to her bunkhouse, she touched it. Knowing this was the stillness before a storm. On the third day, Kane summoned everyone to the stables except her. According to him, it was about new orders, about discipline, and about traitors who corrupted the group. When Ben returned, he was pale. They're going to set you up. You'll make a mistake, get framed. Someone will say you were stealing. Kane won't do it directly. He'll wait until you falter. Then he'll finish you off. She nodded. What about you? Ben looked away. I'm with you, but I'm not a hero, Mara. I just want to get out of this cursed place alive. In the morning, someone left a dead chicken on the doorstep of her bunkhouse. In the evening, a bucket of grain disappeared. Then her horse's reins were cut, and it nearly carried her off a cliff. Kane was silent, but his men were active. Mara didn't sleep at night. She slept with shadow and a knife under her hand. She watched the sun rise like a battle that was drawing closer. Still here, are you? She heard one day. Looks like you want to play a game with the adults. Silas stood by the corral, leaning against a post, a cigar in his hand, ice in his eyes. I know who you are. You're not a cowboy. You're an orphan. Street trash. You think you found a family among horses. No. They're meat and your dirt under my boots. I built this ranch. I am the rule. Mara was silent. And when I'm done with you, not even a dog will remember your name. She took a step closer. Quietly, confidently. It's too late, Silas. They already remember it. The next morning, the mayor returned. He wanted to buy more wagons and offered an escort through hostile territory. Kane agreed, even though he knew it was dangerous. We'll send the best. And her, he said, pointing at Mara. It was a trap. The native tribesmen would kill her. Or her own men would. Or maybe they would just leave her in the desert. Mara understood, but she agreed. She was ready. The journey took 3 days. The team of 6 was led by Troy, Kane's favorite. He made no secret of his wish for an accident. He hinted that Mara was the weakest link. On the second day, they found a mutilated coyote carcass nailed to a tree. On its hide, a symbol of the local tribe. It's a warning, Ben whispered. We're on their land. Troy smirked. Let them come. We have a law. He looked at Mara. That night, the attack began. A howl came from the cliffs. An arrow pierced a wagon wheel. The horses whinnied. The men grabbed their weapons. Mara grabbed a rifle, protecting a flank. Troy disappeared. He wasn't among the shooters. Only then did she realize he had left with the horses. He had abandoned them, 2 wounded, 1 dead. They were trapped, surrounded, without transport. But Mara didn't falter. She led the men to a cliff, fighting her way through a gorge if she knew every path. These lands were more familiar to her than people were. They made it out. 1 man short, but alive. And when they returned, the mayor shook her hand. You saved my men. That would be worth money. But I don't want to pay Kane. I want to pay you. She didn't say anything, only nodded. And behind her, Troy stood, his face paler than a ghost. He knew what awaited him. Mara returned to her bunkhouse, and in the morning, she came out to face Kane. You wanted me to perish. I survived. You wanted me to be scared. I'm standing before you. He sneered. And now what, girl? Going to take me to court? She pulled a document from beneath her shirt with the mayor's signature. This is a contract for supplies. Not to you, but to me. And if you step 1 foot onto my part of the corral, you'll answer to the law. Your law." He lunged forward but stopped. People were watching. Ben stood in the back. The coachman, the old man from the kitchen, even deaf Jeremy, all of them. They were looking at her, not him. And in that moment, he understood he had lost. The ranch changed. Mara no longer slept on straw. She didn't clean the stalls. She didn't sharpen her knife to keep from falling asleep with fear. Now she had her own lean-to, 2 assistants, and her name on a contract. She negotiated with butchers, and even once with the sheriff himself, and something in his eyes said he knew who the real power was now. But peace was an illusion. Silas Kane didn't leave. He was waiting. He lived in his big house on the hill, surrounded only by quiet. His men avoided his gaze, muttering behind his back. Mara knew he hadn't forgiven. He was just waiting for the moment. And it came when a federal agent arrived in town, an ordinary man in a dusty coat, but with a warrant, a signature from Austin, and sharp eyes. He was looking for evidence of missing workers from other farms. He suspected human trafficking, and Kane, it turned out, was at the center of the suspicion. Mara was sitting on the porch when the agent approached her. "You were with Kane long enough to know where he buried the truth." The next day, Kane's ranch was searched. They found Troy's journal hidden under a floorboard, where he mentioned buying people, debts, threats, and even disappearances. Mara saw Silas standing in front of the stable, surrounded by agents, but not in handcuffs. He was calm. He knew the law. He had never signed anything himself. His men did everything, and most were either dead or gone. "You lost," he said, walking past. "You have no proof, only rumors and fear. And that's not enough." Mara watched him go. He was right, almost. That evening, she went to the river again, where it had all begun, where he first called out to her like a predator in the jungle. "Is that all you've got?" Only now everything was different. She walked to the water, took off her boots, sat on a rock, and in that moment, Ben sat down beside her. "You knew this wouldn't end, didn't you?" She nodded. He pulled out an old, faded photograph. A few men, horses, one of them with a scar on his cheek. "Troy, my brother." He vanished after he refused to hide bodies for Kane. "I never knew where to look for him until I found this in the ledger." He handed it to her. "The last entry, Ben knows. Get rid of him." With that, Mara went back to the agent. This time, a case was officially opened. On the day of his arrest, Kane stood in the middle of the corral, his fingers clenched into fists, his face a stone mask. Mara walked out to him as one walks to a beast no longer feared. He spat into the dirt. "You think you won? You'll have your own informants, your own dirty deeds. You won't last." She didn't answer. She only turned and walked away. And when he tried to shout, "You're still just a girl," dirt under my feet, the horse she'd taken from the stable a year ago, the very one that had almost thrown her from the cliff, whinnied and reared up as if protecting her. Even the animals knew who the boss was now. A year later, the ranch was no longer called a nest of fear. It had become a safe place. Wanderers, orphans, women from the slums all found work and the place here. They called her by her name, not in a whisper, but with respect. And when she rode past the bunkhouse where she had once slept, a young boy looked up and asked, "Is it true that you once took on Silas Kane?" Mara squinted. "No, boy. He once took on me."